So you may be wondering why I've called the title of this video Nespresso is the best. An introduction to pods is the second part, and it's more about that. Now, for coffee aficionados, for baristas, for anybody who enjoys making coffee, they will probably want to kill me, but hear me out. It's not about Nespresso being the best system for making coffee, full stop, but I personally think it is the best system for making pod-based coffee, okay? Now again, there'll be a lot of debate and contentious issues about this in terms of whether you should even be using a pod machine, and there will be purists and baristas out there that'll comment down below, I am sure of it, if you keep an eye on the comments that, oh, you shouldn't use pod machines, they're rubbish and you can't get control and you can't do this. Yeah, absolutely right. However, it's easy and they do a good job, and for the most part it tastes fine and they're cheap and there's no faffing around. So when I'm at home, I don't mind having a pod machine. When I'm at work, if I'm on a commercial machine, great, that's when I'll have those coffees. And I could set up here with a home espresso machine like you see in the original videos on this channel that were posted several years ago. But for now, for me, for home, this is a great system. I've gone through many different systems. I've tried Uno machines, I've tried Tassimo machines, I've tried Dolce Gusto machines, and now Nespresso. And I've ended on Nespresso because I think it's the best. That's what I meant in the title, that of the pod-based machines, Nespresso is the best, and you will see why in a minute. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of pod-based machines, and then why I think Nespresso is the best, and then we'll just make some coffees, and so you can see for yourself why I think it's the best, and it's down to you what you use. Like, I'm not going to force this upon anyone. I'm not sponsored by Nespresso. This is just something I'm going to be sharing with you. So, in the UK at least anyway, in Australia there's a few different ones, in America there's a few different ones, but I've not tried those ones. I'm just based off the ones that I have tried, which are the Uno, which was several years ago, Tassimo, Dolce Gusto, and Espresso. The reason why I like Nespresso over them is purely down to one major key factor. Actually two. The first is the milk. Now, Nespresso is the only one that readily uses real milk to make its coffee. Dolce Gusto uses quite large coffee pods, but they use powdered milk. So when you're making your coffee, if you're using a milk-based drink, it doesn't taste the nicest. It's powdered milk. Then we go on to Tassimo. Tassimo is good, great variety, great range, but they use flatter discs. However, in those discs, the milk is already in there, which means it's long life milk, which again has a really, I don't know, it's a weird sweet taste to it. It's a bit, I don't know how you describe it. If you've tasted long life milk, you'll know it tastes a bit weird. So Tassimo use long life milk. However, Nespresso is just pods. This is them. So for you to add anything to them, you have to add your own milk, and it's down to you. You can use oat, almond, soy, full fat, semi-skimmed, full skimmed, half and half, whatever it is that you want to use, but you get to use real milk, not long life, not powdered. That's why I like Nespresso the best. All the pods are fairly similar. They all have a great range and a great variety. But the second point I was making about why I like Nespresso is because for some reason, I'm not sure how or why or when, but when Nespresso tried to patent these little pods, they couldn't do it, or didn't do it, or whatever it was, which means that anybody can make Nespresso pods. So the variety of these are huge. You can go onto Amazon, for example, and buy a 100-pack for £10. You can go to any of the local supermarkets and get their own brand Nespresso pods, which normally are relatively cheap. You can go onto Nespresso's website and buy their pods. You can get them anywhere and in almost any type of variety. But Nespresso machines are mixed and varied. You can go anything from what I believe is their range of the Pixie machines, which are little tiny ones, which just do espresso, all the way through to the bigger machines like this one here, which I believe, I've forgotten now, the Latissima Pro, I think it's called. The benefit of this machine here is that it does the coffee and milk. It has its own steam on and milk jug, so it does the whole thing. So it replicates an espresso-based barista-style drink much better than some of its competitors, I think. Now these machines you can pick up relatively cheap now. They've been around quite a while. You can go directly to Nespresso, and again, I'm not sponsored by Nespresso, wink wink if you're watching, but you can go directly to Nespresso's website and subscribe to a 12-month system where you get the machine for £1, and they'll send you one, and then coffee, and then you're set and you're done on a simple subscription basis. Anything from the small ones all the way through to the big ones like this, which is great. Or look on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Amazon, and just pick up one. They're relatively cheap now, but they're really good at doing the job for pod machines. Now, one of the biggest things I'm sure I'm going to get pushback on is, oh, but pods, and they're bad for the environment and you can't recycle them and all that sort of stuff. Well, it's not exactly true. So there's been quite a bit of research into this, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details because we're here to make some coffee. So just a brief overview of these pods and why they're not necessarily as bad as everybody thinks. Yes, it is true that they go in the bin, generally speaking. There are millions of these units around the world now, pod machines, and people using these capsule pods for their coffee. There's, generally speaking, 3 different types of pods. There is plastic, aluminium, and compostable, which is starting to become a bigger thing. Each pod has a method of being disposed of correctly, but it all comes down to how you dispose of them. Now, for example, if you go through Nespresso directly, all their pods are aluminium, all of them. When they send them to you, they will also send you a recycling bag. When you're finished, you put them in the recycling bag. One of the people will come and collect it and take it away and recycle properly. So that is one way of combating it. The other way is the compostable pods, which you can get. As long as they're composted properly, they will break down. The plastic pods, depending on what type of plastic they are, can be recycled, again, if they're recycled properly. The aluminium pods you can buy from the shops, again, if you recycle them correctly, they can be recycled. It all comes down basically to you, what you do with them. Unfortunately, most people, I've been guilty of this, tend to just throw them in the bin sometimes when it's easy. However, what you have to do to effectively recycle them is you take off the silver foil, which pretty much all of them have, empty out the coffee, and then recycle the pod separately. And when you're going through quite a few pods, to do that is quite a bit of a faff, but that's how you do it correctly. Now, with those pod styles, believe it or not, probably aluminium comes out on top as the best recyclable, because they can go to a recycling plant, be extracted from the rest of the rubbish, and recycled effectively. Compostable and plastic will still have to be broken down at some point, which can release gases into the air. Now, if you're thinking the bigger picture rather than just, oh, they go into landfill, you've got to think of the environmental impact total of these things. Now, the benefit of these pods is they're single serve. These aren't quite as much as a standard coffee that you get, say, from a coffee shop. Each of these holds about 5 grams of coffee. So if you have a double shot, you're only getting about 10 grams, which is, you know, on average, anywhere from 5 to 7 grams less than what you'd normally get from a double shot in a cafe, for example. But they're single serving. The machines themselves dose a single serve of water for the coffee. So in order for this machine to heat up and heat the water that it needs to make this coffee, from a carbon footprint perspective, is very good. Now, if you're thinking, okay, well, if I'm making a pour over or an AeroPress or whatever, then I'm only using ground coffee and there's nothing being thrown away other than the coffee. Yes, true, but you still have to boil your kettle or your jug or use hot water in order to do that. Now, when you put water in your kettle to boil, do you put just the right amount for your coffee? No, you normally fill it up and it boils away. Now, the boiling is boiling all that water, so the electricity use for that machine is more than this machine. So when you're talking about millions of these machines, each doing a single serve of coffee at a time, as opposed to kettles worth, filling up things for pour overs and even stovetops. Stovetops have got to go on a stove, and you've either got to use a conductive hob if they support that, or gas, or anything like that. All these things are adding to the carbon footprint. So in terms of environmental impact, pod machines are actually not too bad. So if you're using a pod machine and recycling the pods in an effective manner, they can be one of the best ways of delivering coffee for the environment. And we won't even go into commercial machines because, you know, I love them, I use them, and that's my bread and butter. Those machines to make coffee for people normally have a boiler inside of several litres which constantly keeps hot water boiling. So environmental impact, not very good. Best coffee, of course, but environmentally not the best. But we're not talking commercial now, we're talking at home. At home, yes, you can get a machine, and you say, well, it also does the same thing, it doses the right amount of water. Absolutely correctly, it does. And in terms of what they are, they're very, very similar. The good thing about this is you're not wasting any coffee. You've got the exact right amount of dose. So if you for a home espresso machine, you have to buy a bag of coffee. And if you don't go through the bag of coffee, then you've got coffee waste. You have to make sure that you're going through it all, but then the production method of making sure all the coffee goes into that bag, is that any comparable to putting coffee in one of these? You know, give or take. So a home espresso machine, a pod machine are fairly on par. The only difference, like I said, is these are designed for single serve, so you know exactly what you get when you're getting it with no waste aside from these things, but recycle them properly, you should be fine. Anyway, there's that really boring history lesson on pods, why they're not as bad as you may think they are, compared to other espresso delivery systems. So that's it. This is why I think Nespresso is the best for pod delivery systems, and overall pods really aren't as bad as you think they are. So try one. They're cheap as anything. You can pick them up. I mean, I'm seeing pod machines, Nespresso machines, Dolce Gusto, Tassimo, all those for like £5 to £10 on Facebook. Grab one, try it, see what you think. Anyway, let's make some coffee. So the first thing we're going to do with this machine is turn it on. Up here, you have your start button. On this machine, this is the, like I said, the Nespresso Latissima Pro, I think it's called. It's made by Sage, who do some really decent home machines. It's now on. First thing I'm going to do is take the water tank off the back by simply popping it open. There's some water in there already, but I'm going to fill it up or top it up with some fresh. Now I use a Brita filter style jug because it gives the freshest, best water, and as everybody knows, if you want fresh coffee, you got to have fresh water. Don't just use tap water because it's rubbish. And if you don't have a Brita filter, just get some bottled water. It's absolutely fine, and that will do the job. Now, from here, once the machine is on and ready to go, I will simply select my turn dial to select the coffee that I want. Open up the lever, pop my pod in, close the lever, and hit start. So the first one I'm going to do right now is an espresso. So I'm going to hit this little tray here, and this one pops out the smaller cup holder, which I can pop directly under there so I don't get much backsplash. Up here, I'm turning the dial to select espresso, and then I'm going to hit start, and you'll hear how this works. And that's the espresso shot. Now you might have heard a few things in that. You might have heard a pss noise, which is the pod being pierced with water. The really now loud sort of mechanical grrr noise is the water being fed through the induction pipes on the inside to heat up to send the water through. Now you see from the point that I hit start, from the point that hot water comes out, is seconds. It uses an inductive coil. Don't know how it works, but that's how it does it. And it heats up the coffee, the water, and sends it straight through the pod, out the spout, into the cup, and that's how it delivers espresso. And the next one we're going to do is a latte. So I'm going to pop that drawer closed there. I'm going to select latte on my machine. I'm going to put a normal mug underneath the spout this time. Lift the lid, pop a new pod in. So as you do that, it drops the pod down into a catch drawer. So if I move this cup out of the way and click this, you can see that it collects the pods in there, ready to be recycled effectively. Anyway, pod in, close the door. That's now sealed that in there. Cup goes under, and now we're going to get some milk. So the milk jug that comes with the machine we're going to use here. I'm sure you can use any standard milk jug if you are a barista or such, and have one kicking around, but this is the one that comes with it. So I'm going to pour some milk in to halfway between the minimum and maximum lines that are on the jug. Lift the steam wand and leave it there. Now underneath the steam wand, I'll show you shortly, is a heating plate that tells when the milk gets to temperature, and the steam itself is set within the machine to make the right milk for the right coffee. So for cafe latte, I'm simply going to hit start again, and you'll hear it go through its same method for espresso. Okay, and once that's done, it's now asking me to select the milk function, so I'll simply hit start again, and it will go through its milk steaming process. So that's it. So I've cut that down drastically. That normally takes about 30-40 seconds to do, but for the sake of you don't want to watch an espresso machine steam milk. So what I'll do now is I'll take the jug off, I'm going to grab the steam one, give it a wipe, it will purge itself. Which is a great thing for it to do. But now, in here, we've got lovely textured milk. It actually does a fairly decent job, I must say. It's all preset in the machine. So then I'm simply just going to grab my drink. Just give it a little bit of a whoop. No real latte out today, but you know, it's close enough. And there we go, that's a lovely cafe latte. So for the next two we're going to do, I've just gotten the angle a little bit higher just so you can see a bit more on top here on how the machine works. It's got a little screen panel up here where you can see which drinks have been delivered. Now the beauty of this machine is that it has several different settings for drinks. It has Ristretto, it has Espresso, it has Lungo, flat white, cafe latte, cappuccino, latte macchiato, and milk. So what we're going to do now is we will do a Ristretto and we will do a cappuccino, just so you can see this. Actually no, because cappuccino is very similar to a latte. I'll show you the latte macchiato and why that's slightly different. So for the Ristretto, I've already got it selected here. I'm simply going to open up the door, pop the pot in, open up my small cup drawer, pop my small cup underneath, and click Ristretto. So as you can see in here there, a much shorter shot than the espresso that came out that we did just a moment ago. And it brings a much smaller volume of coffee. Right, and now we're going to do a latte macchiato. So I'm going to put my cup under here, I'm going to lift my lever, pop my next pod in, close the lever down, and again we're just going to get some milk in here about halfway between the minimum and maximum. Pop it under the steam wand, latte macchiato, start. And start coffee. And that's the latte macchiato done. Now you can probably see I already had a shot of coffee in the cup because I just made the Ristretto. I'm not going to waste it, I'm not crazy. But latte macchiato in this machine does the milk first and then the espresso second. I don't know why. The whole latte macchiato thing for me is a massive question mark. However, I'm going to take this out. Now for me this is made incredibly... must purge. It's made really thick, dense foam in this one. So I'm just going to splodge it in here because that's what you do. That will do. And now I've got a double shot latte macchiato type thing. I think what they're trying to get at with this is that they wanted the milk in the cup. Steam the milk so you pour it in the cup, then the espresso goes on top. To me, latte macchiato is a big question mark. I don't understand it. I don't know what's behind it. I don't know where it came from. For me, a latte is a cafe latte, which is coffee and milk. Cafe means coffee, latte means milk in Italian, coffee, milk, cafe, latte. Macchiato means marked in Italian. So it's espresso marked with a bit of milk. Macchiato marked with milk. That's what it is. So what is latte macchiato? How does that work? Because if a macchiato means marked with milk and then you're putting that on a latte, it's Latte Macchiato, so it's milk, coffee marked with milk. Doesn't make any sense to me, I don't understand it. If anyone would like to explain, please do, but I can't get on board behind a Latte Macchiato. I think it doesn't make any sense to me. The name is bizarre, doesn't fit with what they're actually called, but anyway, this machine does it. And that is my Latte Macchiato-ish kind of drink. There you go, that's it. That's 4 coffee types from this machine. Now, not all of them do that. Like I said, some of the smaller machines simply have an espresso and a lungo button, and that's it. No milk, no nothing. If you just want straight espresso, these little cheap machines are absolutely fine for that. But if you go for something like this, you have the steam control and the milk and everything like that, which is great. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really hope you do and got something out of it. Now, I'm fully expecting the comment section to be bombarded here with people saying, oh, you shouldn't use pod machines and it's not the best way to do it and that. Go for it. That's what it's here for. That's what I'm here for. I'm not precious about this. I want to hear your thoughts. If you want to have a go at me for it, please do. I want to hear your comments and thoughts. I love reading them and hearing what people's thoughts are on it. And I tell you what, there's not many people that have as much passion for coffee as coffee people. It's crazy. I love it. Please comment below. So thank you again for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, and I'll see you very soon.